So, does it work now? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks, David. Good. Yeah. Good. Then everything works, and we'll be back. We'll start with the program in about 10 minutes. See you then. So, hello everybody. So, quick, some last technical stuff and then we start. So, hello everybody here on stream. Um, Finally back from a little bit too long summer break and some hiccups in organization and health, but finally we are back here with the .NET meetups. Yeah, December 2024, last one this year's. As always, presented by .NET Devs. Who are we? We're a non-profit organization here in Vienna. That's all about spreading knowledge about .NET. People behind it are Raul at the back with the photo camera, with the mobile, and also Martin and me, and our fourth person is Stefan, who is sadly ill and not today, but he's watching. So hi, Stefan. Good. No, that was the wrong. Yeah. Thank you all for joining, being here, finding here. In the morning we had a lot of fog here. Nobody saw the building from the metro station, but now it's better. And also for the stream around the world. Yeah, as usual, I have, or sometimes here I have multiple hosts heads. So now I have a different head, because yeah, I'm work protector where we are here. So now it's awkward. So I thank myself for hosting the event here. Okay, I need to do that better the next time. Yeah, yeah, nice to have you all here. So see some familiar faces. Yeah, Tech Talk. We are software development company. I would say the easiest explanation is ISV, and yeah, there are always somewhere such things like their surprise. We are searching for people. Good. Back to head of .NET Devs. Where's my I'm rusty. Perhaps you notice it. Yeah. Also, thanks to our sponsor, at the moment, sadly, only JetBrains, who is sponsoring still the giveaway with the 12 months product license. How to enter, take part in the raffle. We will raffle at the end. Simply join the chat, also with your mobile devices, and type JetBrains. And I started it already. I didn't forget that. And at the end, we will draw one or perhaps two. We have some vouchers to give away. And with that, we didn't know, do nothing in our break. We prepared something for the future. So future looks bright with the events. So we have on January 4th scenes, Rainer Stroppek is talking about AI assistant systems for .NET, current state and developments. He shows latest developments in GitHub Copilot, but also Claude, and the third one is Cursor, when I remember correctly. We will be at Rubicon. In February 20th, we are back again here. We're back again here, and on that day I will have 3 heads, because I will give also a talk about observability and yeah, seeing beyond the logs. I will show you some from a customer project, how we used observability to also decide what to build and to see what's happening more. And rather fresh, and nobody from my team even knows that, from the .NET Dev team, is on March 18th, we are at Square, and Shahab, I don't know yet how I pronounce his name correctly, we'll talk about building event-driven microservices at scale with Azure Cosmos DB. So next 3 months are full, and the first one is already on meetup.com, the in-person announcement, not yet there. The others two are coming in the next days. And with that, I'm finally finished, and I will hand over to Martin, who talk about an aspiring evening in the .NET land. So, thank you. So, Auftritt. Voll Auftritt.
Okay.
Und ein bisschen zurück.
Test, test. You hear me good? Okay. Because I hear nothing. Are you? Oh, okay. Switching cables. Let's see.
Short tech reset up.
Mm-hmm. Now the audience should see me as well. Now I think. Right now, I don't think it's detecting anything. Let's see. Oh.
Hast du einen Presenter Mode aktiviert? Ja, und dann bist du geh auf Extend. Was macht auf Extend?
Mhm. Ist da auch nichts?
Ja, und jetzt wähl 2 aus, und mit welcher Auflösung hast du Advanced die 60 Hertz?
Mhm.
HDMI hast du nicht.
Stream sonst?
So we have some small problems with the beamer location, so please be patient a little bit.
If there was someone working in IT, could help. Are we sure that it is set to HDMI or to this the correct input? Or, okay. Yeah. Beamer. Beamer mal ausschalten und wieder einschalten.
Deswegen kommt man früh.
Ja. Ich habe bis 5 Meetings gehabt und dann meinen Adapter gesucht.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ja.
Please wait.
Yay!
Yay! Awesome. Perfect.
So, you
Thought so. Although I don't really need presenter mode, but let's. Mhm. Okay. Okay, test. Perfect. Okay.
So, looks good locally
Finally.
and on stream. So we can now continue. So,
Perfect.
Martin, your stage.
Well, thank you so much. So, hi, my name is Martin. I recently joined Microsoft in Vienna. Previously, I've been working at a consultancy, working mostly in the .NET ecosystem, Azure ecosystem. So we have a lot of projects that are based on .NET and C#. And I'm not sure if you've used .NET Aspire before. We kind of have used it in a couple projects, even to some extent. Let's say some more for developer productivity, some for having a little bit more observability in production. Unfortunately, I can't show you these now that I left the company. It would have worked a couple of weeks ago. But nonetheless, I have some exciting demos for you, especially with things going on in like the deployment area as well. So who here has ever heard of or used .NET Aspire? Who's actually used it in a project that they ship to a customer? Okay, I see. Okay. I think you might actually have, because Aspire is, I think it's not just a product or a set of tools, it's more a collection of things that the .NET team actually wants to achieve within .NET. So first of all the resources will be there. But the thing is, the .NET team is trying to build a unified platform for deploying to all services. So they're trying to solve some cross-cutting concerns there. So because every application needs some form of observability, resiliency, scalability, manageability. And so that is kind of what they aspire to build. But a lot of that is actually already part of .NET itself. So while they were doing this Aspire project, actually they built a lot of stuff into .NET and also into the library supporting .NET. So .NET includes a lot of great things from observability, even redaction, although unfortunately the packages for that are documented mostly in blog posts, but they're good. Some resiliency, manageability, so lots of things that are already in .NET. And even though they might have come out of the Aspire project, they're built into these packages into the runtime itself. So it's still not easy to start building out applications that meet all these criteria or that have all these properties. So whenever you're dealing with existing projects or starting new projects, it's kind of complex to set all these things up. You don't really know how to get started, and there's obviously lots of choices. So what .NET Aspire tries to build is kind of give you this paved path you can walk along. So basically give you a ready-to-use stack, ready-to-use approach for building observable, production-ready distributed applications. Distributed applications might just being a front end and a back end, like a website and an API service. So what could you use it for? Well, assuming you might have a simple shop or you start with some simple application, it might just be the application itself with some mock data, right? And even then, Aspire or the libraries for it can already help you for observability purposes, for debugging purposes, for manageability, for insights. But then likely what you'll be doing is you're talking to some API or some backend service, and already there, all these distributed application concerns come in as well. And that might scale out quite quickly to lots of different services as well. And maybe even some external services. Maybe you want to integrate AI capabilities and you're using the Azure OpenAI service, and you want to have some observability into that as well, especially if you hit like rate limits or capacity limits, and you want to have some observability into what's actually going on in there. But of course, you might also be using other services like some event bus services, some messaging services, caching, maybe you're using Redis, you're using databases. And all of this needs to be set up for deployment, but also for development, right? So the idea is Aspire kind of should work with all scale applications, and it should grow with you. So you can add it to a project as you start and add more and configure it more as you grow. So what does it actually give you? It actually gives you a couple of smart defaults. So for example, every application could get service discovery for discovering other services that you need to talk to. You would get also defaults for what kind of health checks on endpoints should you implement. So and what kind of open telemetry exporters, for example, you could use. So you're getting actually a defaults code for that. You also get a dashboard that shows you all your projects, shows you the also some in-memory traces and logs that they keep. It helps you orchestrating all the services, especially for local development. You have just one play button, but also integrating with other services, with databases, with external services, but also now it helps you with deployment as well. This deployment step is kind of newish, so there's still a lot of things going on, but maybe you want to deploy it to a cloud, to Kubernetes, and there's things that help with that. And since I don't want to show you all the slides, I prepared code. So let's switch to code. I think StreamYard might be dead again, right? I think so. Perfect. There you go. So I've prepared, or I stole a sample that is basically a web application. So the idea is there is an API that provides weather information that it gets from the United States Weather Service. So there is a service that they actually talk to. It's an external service. And the idea is the service provides zones that are known. So I have to have a list of zones, and then I can get weather forecasts for that zone. And so there now is an API for that encapsulates that external service for my application. And then a small front-end application that kind of displays these zones and lets you actually display these weather informations. How do we set this up? Well, of course, there's this API service. It's a standard ASP.core API app Then there is a front-end application using also ASP.NET, in this case Razor or Razor components, which kind of is what you could then turn into Blaze application as well. So how do we run this in Visual Studio? Well, the classic one would be you select every project and say debug start new instance, or you're more fancy and you can also in the solution properties you can actually say configure startup projects and say you want to have multiple startup projects and set both to start. Whenever you check it out again or move something, that setting might be gone. So if I now try to start both of these, they should provide me with a very minimalistic UI. Yes, both for Swagger and for this weather service. So for example, there is a Glacier Bay zone, and there now is weather information for that. So from today, tonight, Friday, Friday night, until Sunday night. So what did we actually need to set up for this to work? Well, of course, there needs to be some setting usually where you say, okay, there's an endpoint. But also in this case, what I didn't show you is if I try to get a lot of weather forecasts, sometimes I will hit an error. And I would not really have the visibility into this error. And maybe I want to have some view where I can actually have all these informations, and this is where Aspire comes in. But Aspire comes in different stages. So first of all, there are some defaults that all my applications should have to integrate with Aspire and integrate with basically the environment to be a good citizen, to be monitored, like traceable, observable, emit its logs, have its console output shipped, etc. But also provide health endpoints and set up all these Microsoft libraries, or these basically Microsoft extension libraries, to set up all these services. So there is a new project type in the templates, both on the CLI and the Visual Studio, that is called Aspire Service Defaults. Let's just call it Service Defaults. .NET 9. And it actually just makes sure that it includes all the NuGet packages in trace and gives them some extension methods that I can then integrate into my application to like add all the services that are needed. For example, health checks, OpenTelemetry, resilience handlers, service discovery, and also to configure the telemetry to set up all the instrumentation that's needed. So like ASP.NET Core, HTTP client, runtime instrumentation, and so on, so that all the important default metrics that I should really make available are there. And of course, this is a template. I can just modify it. So for example, if I have gRPC as well, it tells me, hey, if you use gRPC, just uncomment this. Also, maybe if I want to use application insights, add a NuGet package and uncomment this. So most of that is a default. I can edit it, but I can also, or I should actually now use it. So let's add this project as a reference to both my applications. Okay, and then actually use it. So I should have builder, add service defaults, perfect. And in the application, I want to have map default endpoints. This again will give me the health check endpoints for like, am I healthy? Am I alive? At least for development. So for this project and of course for the other one as well. add service defaults, map default endpoints. Okay, so I have some of these defaults now configured. How do I actually use them, or now give me these cool dashboards that I was talking about all the time? So there's another project type that I can add here as well. Add new project, Aspire, app host. And this is now the actual orchestrator project. So let's call this my weather hub .app host. Yes, .NET 9. Perfect. What do I have here? Basically, nearly nothing. But what I have is I'm creating a distributed application using a builder pattern. So I start with distributed application, create builder. And then I build this distributed application and run it. But I actually need to add things to my distributed application. So I can actually do this by adding references to projects. So I'm adding both the API and the front end as a project reference. This will actually ensure that the other projects are built whenever I build and run this project. It will not really set up all the NuGet dependencies, so there's a little bit of magic behind this project type. But also it means that in the application I can now use this project reference as well. So for example, I can have my API by using builder.add_project. And now there's a magic class called projects.api. Now this is generated by a very clever source generator that parses the project references and provides this. And I need to pass a name as well, and I will just call this API. The same for the web front end. Add project, projects.myweatherhub. Okay. Now, actually, I want to make this app host my startup project. And let's see what happens now. Okay. So now I actually get this fancy dashboard that shows me all the components of my applications that are running. So now the API is running, the Weather Hub is running. I can actually click on this HTTPS link that is set up. So I should be able to use this now. Now let's actually click on a couple more of these. Boom. And now I'm in an throw exception block that happens every 5 invocations. Also notice Visual Studio is actually attached to the project that was started. So even if I restart that project or change something, Visual Studio will automatically attach to the project that is started by .NET Aspire. So gone are the days of setting multiple startup projects. In Visual Studio, this is kind of cumbersome. I have to agree there are other IDEs that make this a little bit easier. But now with Aspire, I think those days are really gone. Also note, Aspire also integrates with other things like external containers, external executables like Node, but I will get to that in a minute. Now I'm actually gonna continue on this exception and not do anything. So now there's an error message. But let's have a look at the dashboard again. So I have an overview over all my resources. I can do things like restart the service, view some of the details. It says health state healthy because it's actually calling this health endpoint. I can have a look at the console logs as well. So I can actually have a look at the output. So I can see this error message here as well. Same goes for the front end. But I can also have the structured log information. So I can see there was an API error here. And I can actually get to not just the log message itself, but also to the other supplemental information that are attached to this message. So this would show up in every structured log, like Elasticsearch, application insights, where I could have all these metadata here as well. But I think the coolest feature is actually the trace. So I can actually have a trace information here to see how the dependencies are ordered. And I can actually also view the consolidated logs for all the services that were involved in this error. So if there's like 2 or 3 services involved, maybe an external service as well, I could see the whole chain in here. So this dashboard actually keeps an in-memory, temporary history of all the traces or the transactions that have happened and the logs as well. Do note this is kind of limited by how much memory your computer has. So don't try to put terabytes of logs in there or whole images or whole documents. Don't ask me why. But I think this is kind of cool. Also, you can see browse the metrics here as well. So if you want to have a look at the request graphs, you can use the actual HTTP outgoing connections. So I can see how many requests were there as well. So there were some requests because I had to make some to the weather service as well. The kind of new ones are actually DNS lookups, which is kind of cool. But of course, there's always things about the garbage collector, like how much heap do I use, how many objects are there, how many allocations are done, and so on. So you can always have a look into the runtime as well. Although I would prefer the names to be a little bit clearer. So for example, timer count, also interesting. If you're debugging some contention issues, I have seen this metric go up and down and up and down and nothing happening. And that's a good starting point to go from as well. Again, there's some more runtime metrics that you could add here as well. But those are kind of more cumbersome to get out. So, but of course, this is based on the actual .NET metrics infrastructure. So if you have your own libraries, your own packages that you might use, for example, some connectors to, for example, Postgres, they integrate with metrics as well. So you can also emit the Postgres metrics. So like how many connections are open, how many are in the pool, etc. Those actually also report via the metrics API, and you can also export them as well, just using the default interfaces that are now available. So they will end up in your dashboard or in whatever system you use to collect metrics. Okay, but now what I also want to show you, we have this distributed application. We didn't really tell it that those two are related, right? So we kind of rely on the front-end's app setting to always point to this correct address, localhost, with a port number. But that's actually kind of dangerous. Like, how do I know this port is free? What happens if I change it? How do I keep things in sync if I move things around? And this is where Aspire really, really helps as well. So I can tell my web project that it actually needs a reference. So I add a project with a reference to the API project. So I can tell it, hey, you should discover the HTTP endpoint via this, but also if I actually want to make sure that this web application is reachable externally via HTTP, I can also tell it, yeah, by the way, if you deploy or if you do some configuration, make sure this is also visibly externally. So this is also some distinction. It doesn't really matter for local deployment as well, but more for when I want to deploy to a system. Everything will be internal, like communication-wise. except for those things that I marked with like, yeah, this has an external HTTP endpoint. So if I do this, what can I actually write into the endpoint now? I can actually change this to just say API, but also I can change this to be both HTTPS if it exists, or fall back to HTTP if not. So this magic URL is parsed by these service discovery libraries that are hooked into the right places in the HTTP in the outgoing HTTP pipeline that will kind of try, like, is HTTPS supported? Yes, no. Maybe if I'm calling some external API, it would be. If not, it would fall back to HTTP, which, for example, for internal communication within a Kubernetes cluster might just be fine. So let's check if it still works. Okay, there I am. And it looks good. So service discovery is there. How does it actually work? So let's have a look at the details here. It actually works via environment variables, as many things. So if I add these service defaults and I run the application, there's these magic environment variables that I looked at. So if they come via configuration, and it wouldn't even matter if I now deploy to Kubernetes and just set these in like the Kubernetes manifest, it will still work. It doesn't need the Aspire host to configure this. So whatever system you're deploying to, if you have these configuration variables set, like services, the name of the service, the name of the protocol, and then an array of the options, this will set up these service discovery features as well. So no need for the actual app host to set these up. And that comes with the actual package that is used here. Let me show you in the service defaults. So this happens with, add service discovery. And this comes from a package called Microsoft Extension Service Discovery. So it's one of the things that even though it's part of Aspire, it's kind of basically in the main .NET stack that's available in the like default .NET namespaces. Okay. Now I do also want to show you that you can integrate some other things as well. Let me just quickly fire up another program. So this is another small application that is running a very, very minimal API and a couple variations on the front end. The front ends in this case actually not being .NET projects. They're not using any MS Build project format. So they're just like basically external executables. So let's see if those are starting. So what I have here is basically our API, our app host, service defaults, but also an Angular application, which is like just a simple TypeScript application. It's built using Node. It actually has a Docker file as well. So if I have a Docker file, I can publish it as well. But there's no CSproj, there's no MS Build logic in here. So for Aspire, it really is just an external project. And it's up now. So you can see the API is called, and it's instrumented also via or orchestrated as well via Aspire. And I can also do things like restart. I can have a look at the console logs to view the output of whatever NPM was doing. So I can also integrate this as an external application. Just a neat thing to know. So not everything has to be just only in the .NET world. But also what you can see here is also, yeah, I'm telling it how to start. And I've also mentioned these deployments as well. And you can see there's also this publish as Docker file. And what Aspire can also do is once I've set up this project, I can actually export the project structure as a manifest. Typically, you will never look at this, but all the tools that help you deploy an Aspire application will use this representation as some form of intermediate before generating their own output. To say, okay, I have this React application, but actually the type is now a Docker file. So if I want to publish it, it says, hey, publish whatever this is using Docker from a Docker file. It's like build this thing, don't ask what it is, just use Docker to build it and then ship it. And set these environment variables wherever you deploy it to. So that's kind of this deployment strategy. Let me maybe show you this in action as well. So let's have a look at one of the larger demos. Let's just make sure my Docker is running. Maybe remove these as well. Okay, now I have a little bit more complicated application or complex application. It has more things to do. It is actually a very simple shop with one front end, one service that provides a catalog that shows what things I could buy, one service that holds my shopping basket where I can add things into and on checkout clear it, and some libraries like the actual database context, which just has the database definition, but also a database manager application that can do things like initialize the database, but also for development, I have a reset feature in there as well. And then an Aspire app host that is actually wiring all this up as well. So this is using I want to start with something else. This is using as well project references, but it will also say add Redis. But in this case, I also added Aspire hosting NuGet packages as well. So there's some magic NuGet packages to help me integrate, for example, with Azure as well. If I just wanted to open this project file. Yeah, there we are. So I can tell you, yeah, I want to use Redis. I wanted to know how Postgres works, but for example, I could also say I want to use the Azure version of Postgres because when I deploy, I don't want it running as a container. So the default when I publish to Azure with Aspire, with the Azure tools, is it will create a container app environment and deploy containers. But maybe I want to not deploy Postgres as a container because there isn't actually a first-class service that has an SLA, and I don't need to deal with storage and everything. And what I can do here with a lot of these things is I can say, yeah, add Postgres flexible server. The default would then be to also use like Azure managed identities to do the authentication, for which I would have to change a few lines in the samples, but I'm too lazy. So I said, just use password authentication and try to set up whatever you were doing before, which behind the scenes tells it to also set up some passwords as well. But for running locally, I might not want to have to deploy some Azure infrastructure to just run and debug on my local computer. So this is why some of these integrations also have some different configuration for running, which means if I click run, I want to actually run as a container, which means it will deploy a local Docker container with a Postgres image to just have a local database to use. Let's just try this out. Nope. It was already in use. So something else is probably running. better. So I can see now in my Docker for Windows application, it shows me that there's some images running. So there's Postgres, Redis, also Redis Commander, which is useful for just issuing commands to Redis. Also, these things come with those neat integrations, like add Redis with the data volume, so I don't lose my data locally, but also with Redis Commander to also make sure that this Redis command is also deployed, so I have a development tool to actually use. Now, let's just use it a little bit. Nope. Where did it open? There we are. Let's open the front end. Yeah, there's my product catalog. Let's add a few things to my basket. Now there's one. Now there's two. I should also see these traces here as well. Like calling things get basket by ID, posting things in there. Also do notice that some of these, now it says RPC. This is because the basket service is actually a gRPC service in this case. So it's using gRPC, but there's not really a lot of difference. So I'm still saying with reference to a catalog database, but wait for those things to start. So I can also set up some dependencies. So this is kind of a little bit more complex, but again, most of the things I've shown you, except for maybe you can also add for local development some additional commands. In this case, there is an implementation for an HTTPS command. I have to say though, this is also some code that comes with this sample, but you can usually just copy paste that and to a different project and reuse it. The neat thing is in your resources. So where are we? Catalog database manager. And now it's just out of bounds. Let me maybe do it like this. Perfect. Now I have this fancy reset database feature here. So if you want to have your own development tools that you need for doing the things, that's a really neat thing to have if you need to do like some debug flag, like send email to our customers, send email to customer. Okay, it works. Deactivate customer, like all those things you need to do all the time that maybe you have done manually in the database. Maybe you want some development service and have those things implemented as actions. So you can easily do it via the Aspire dashboard as well. Now, how would I actually set this up now for deployment? So let's try and deploy this thing. So I'm Aspire shop. Now, there's a neat tool, there's the Azure CLI, but there's also an Azure Developer CLI. And the Azure Developer CLI has some more tools to help me work with my actual code projects as well. So for this project, I have not set anything up. So I want to do ACD init. Okay, I'm actually set this up. Let's fake that I did not. Oops. Now, enter a new name. Meetup Aspire Shop Demo. Perfect, initialized. And what can I do now? I can do ACD up. And it will tell me it is analyzing my application. This might take a moment. And now what it does, it actually found, or should have found the Aspire app host, asked this app host, so let's deploy this to Sweden, asked this app host for this manifest so that it renders out the manifest of what services are needed. It then creates a bicep template, which is similar to Terraform, but not as verbose as these like Azure ARM templates. And what it does now, it is trying to create all the resources that are needed in Azure to deploy this application. So this is gonna take likely about 10 to 15 minutes. So I might let this run. So it's creating container registries and so on, but I can actually show you a version that is already there. To just show you a little bit what is set up here. Actually, the taskbar should go away, but never mind. Okay, it doesn't work, but it should work. So it sets up the container registry in which it actually builds all my applications. So the front end, catalog service, basket service, those are now all available as containers. It sets up a container apps environment. In this case, a publicly available one, and deploys all the applications into this container environment. Now, the cool thing about Azure Container Apps now is it actually includes the .NET Aspire dashboard. Because this dashboard, yes, it's part of the app host when you run the app host, but the dashboard can actually also run as a self-contained application. There's actually a Docker image that is provided, so you can run the dashboard itself. So you can run the dashboard and use its OpenTelemetry endpoint to just push logs and metrics into it, and it will display it. And now in this container apps environment, I can open this dashboard as well. And it will show me all the services that are running. So in this case, if I want to start the front end, I can have a look at the front end. This is now deployed to Sweden Central. I did this in the afternoon. So I can also add things to the, okay. There was an error, likely because all these services have been shut down. But there was still one item in my basket. And I should also see the logs in here as well. So if I want to have, the render tree. Oh, interesting. So something to debug. The error is here. I can have a look at it later if I really want to. Apparently Stack Exchange Redis status unhealthy. That is interesting. Likely because the container may have not scaled as I expected it to. But you can see all the services are deployed here with the exception of the database, which is again out of the visible area. Which is actually this one. I hope you trust me that it's this one. But unfortunately, the Redis container was running as just a container, and apparently there are some issues with that. So maybe I should have used Azure Cache for Redis instead. So let's quickly have a look if this is doing well. Yes, it's deploying the container apps environment. But what we can also do is there's a command as well called azd infra synth that will just export those bicep templates for me. So if I have a look at the version that I prepared in the afternoon, Aspire shop. So for example, you can see there is an infra folder here. That will actually contain all the resources that are about to be deployed, from all the managed identities, everything that's necessary, down to even the Postgres module. There's actually also things I can configure in C# as well. So the idea is this is actually using a library on top of Bicep that is using a C# representation to render these Bicep templates. And if I really want to change things in here, I can also have configure infrastructure. So I can also get the provisionable resources, select the ones that I'm deploying, change the SKU, change the storage size, the speed, if I want to have like a memory optimized tier, etc. So I can also configure the infrastructure in here as well, if I really want to do that. And then what we can also do is set up CI/CD. So if I quickly have a look, there is a README file in here.
One quick question before you do that, because we are the deployment. We got a question from the chat.
Okay.
And the question is from Johannes. When he has the case that he has already a Helm chart set up for his services. If there is a way to convert that over to Aspire deployments so he formulated that. Can I achieve as fine control over ACD as with Helm charts?
I don't think so at the moment. For working with Kubernetes, there's actually something else as well. Aspirate, I think it's called. So if you want to deploy to Kubernetes, there's also a project that helps you with that. It's called Aspirate. I have not used it personally. Since the applications that I have been deploying using Helm charts, I just stayed on deploying using Helm charts, just maybe switching over the environment variables to fit these defaults. But also there's an Aspirate project that helps you with generating the Kubernetes manifests. And then I would maybe just use the ACD to set up the infrastructure that they need to run Kubernetes and deploy to Kubernetes using that. So if your main target is Kubernetes, I would probably try to look into Aspirate first, and then try to do maybe stay the Helm charts, because I have to say the main deployment way that ACD currently supports is usually Azure Container Apps, so which you're likely not using if you're using Helm charts. But you can also deploy, for example, the Aspire dashboard, because it's just a Docker container, it's just a container. You can also have a Kubernetes manifest for the dashboard as well, and configure the dashboards using environment variables. There's a documentation on that as well, so you can integrate that as well.
Oh, okay. So he mentioned that he deploys to Azure with Helm charts.
So also, I think as ACD, it's kind of to help you get over that initial step of setting up your deployment, your infrastructure, but also your CI/CD. If you have already done it, I don't think there's a compelling argument to throw the things you've done away right now.
Thank you. And yeah, chat, and also here, if you have questions, please ask them. So let's continue.
Right. Oh, it already created a flexible database server. Because what I also wanted to show you is there's also a description, next steps, ACD pipeline config. but I think we're going to run out of time with that. The idea is you can actually let ACD also generate the templates that you need for deploying with, for example, GitHub Actions, creating a workflow template that you can use to use ACD to also deploy to an environment, but for example, for each change to the Git repository. There is one for Azure DevOps as well. So if you're using Azure pipelines, there's templates for that as well. So it really helps you get started quickly on creating a distributed application, developing it locally, debugging it locally, setting up an infrastructure to deploy to, and then also when deployed, still making sure everything is as easy to configure as possible, but also gives you these tools like the dashboard as well for the deployed applications. Just note the dashboard is not the thing that should keep your logs forever. It's limited by in-memory database. There's no persistence. So maybe you want to use some additional monitoring tools as well. So yeah, the question?
Just a question, how is the database migration done when it's set up?
In this case, through the database manager service. So there is another service that is running all the time that has this catalog DB initializer configured, which is a hosted service that whenever the service starts up, execute async, creates a scope. It actually logs an activity. So this activity should then be visible as a trace inside your monitoring tool of choice, also the dashboard, and then initialize the database, create an execution strategy, execute async, migrate async. So this is done on startup of that service. So if you deploy a new version of the service, if you update that service, the new version would start, it would perform the migration.
I guess it's also waiting for the main app to start up before after the migration is done, because it will need the new database likely.
So in this case, I think on local deployment it should, because in the app host, the service, nope, the service is just referencing the database. So in this case, your application would just not work until it's run. However, what this catalog database service should also have is, since we add the health checks, I'm not sure if this is now in the service defaults here as well, but the idea is you should ideally also use the database health checks. So your application should not report healthy or ready until the database is available. And you could also add to that, yeah, my application is not healthy if the migration has not been applied. So yes, the service would be running, but the deployment would not make this new instance visibly publicly until this health check should pass. So I would recommend implementing that as a health check. Like, is the migration that I expect there? Is it healthy? Do I reach the database? So, or maybe the alive check. So health checks with the live tag must pass for the app to be considered alive. So I would say, yeah, my app is only alive if the database has the version maybe for startup. You can do it like that. Previously, when I used Kubernetes deployments and I really needed to make sure the application did not start until the migration deployed, I was using init containers for that. It was kind of cumbersome to set up because I had my own container image with a service that basically says, do nothing, wait until migration completes, so that this container would have to complete before the main container would start in Kubernetes. That was kind of a weird setup, to be honest. But yeah, this is how this sample does it. Again, your application might do something else. Maybe your microservices are that well isolated that you can somehow do it within one service and maybe use some locking mechanism as well. Because technically every service should have its own database. So yeah, again, architecture is different everywhere. There's different approaches to doing it. I think I've done at least 3 or 4 versions of whatever is possible.
Good. And we have another question by Stefan as we were the app post quickly. He asked if you also could add a custom CLI app to the app host directly, or do he also always need to wrap it in a web API app?
So if the thing should be running continuously and restarted, this is actually possible. Maybe if I show you the sample before, the one that actually starts this like Angular application. That says I want to add an NPM app. Give me a second. So add resource. So this, okay, this is Node app resource, but I think this resource should, nope. The one. Yeah, wrap executable resource. So I can basically start any executable and say, this executable should be running. I'm not sure if there is a direct add method, or there is add executable.
Yeah, and you could do things like starting IIS Express and get your ASP.NET Framework, ASP.NET MVC app into Aspire, if you really want to do that.
I will not comment on that. But yeah, you could do a lot of things. But yeah, instrumenting IIS could be kind of hard, IIS Express. Maybe the hostable web core could be interesting here as well. But yeah, in the past 2 years, I have not worked on an ASP.NET Framework application, which I'm happy to report, but I know experiences may vary. Also within the companies I've worked at. So. Okay. Oh, actually, the version I just deployed should work now. So let's just check if this one also works. Front end. Yeah, I can also add both. Add 3 as well. Now do the checkout, which should reset it. Okay, so perfect. So I've shown you how I just like deployed Treasure from 0, creating all the resources. I can even now do this acd infra synth command. That should also give me the bicep template if I want to maybe do it myself, customize the resources. That feature is currently in alpha, but I think it's kind of good because it really shows you, yeah, override, because it really shows you what is actually going on behind the scenes as well. Because just everything is just layers upon layers upon layers, drilling down quite deeply. And so I guess with that, I can close it out. Nope. Though I, oh, okay. Okay, so couple of links. So there's actually kind of a community around Aspire as well. So you can find a lot of Aspire resources. There's some videos, and there's some good community integrations as well that you can use. So like the Stack Exchange, Redis integration. And of course, there's a GitHub repository the team is working on there. It still has a lot of traction within the community, within Microsoft. So I really encourage you to try it out. Personally, I would have liked to use it on the last project I worked at before I left the company, where I would have liked to really replace all the Docker Compose files that set up like lots of different containers with interactions. I would have loved to just replace them with configuration in the app host. So, but other projects that we started from scratch or that you might start from scratch, I really encourage you to look into it. So thank you for your time, and back to you, Andy.
So, which question can Martin ask? In the meantime, we will switch again PCs and
Yeah,
let's see
and
what breaks the next time.
Did you end the sharing of my? Perfect.
I don't know. Yeah, it's black.
Okay.
So no. Do. Hat das richtige Kabel jetzt? Ah. Dunkeln. So. No questions? Lucas.
You showed us a very cool command to automatically create the infrastructure and deploy everything. My question is, does it only work for development and testing environments or only for production, or does it somehow magically know which environment I'm deploying to?
So you can actually manage multiple environments with it. So you can actually set up multiple environments and say deploy to this environment, deploy to this environment, deploy to this environment. Typically what you would have is you would have a development environment for yourself or team shared you could use. But then for the actual production environments, I would try not doing that within the same subscription or within the same scope that you would have user access to deploy to. So that I would try to only do using like either any CI/CD workflow. But you can also use AZD within that workflow to also deploy to production, for example.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, thank you. You know, when it comes
Nearer to
okay,
nearer. It's not that.
is it okay now? Yes. All right. You know, when it comes to magic, you know, it makes me terrified because I'm not sure how flexible is that if I want to start to work on a project. For example, okay, I want to start a project with clean architecture. I'm not sure how much this will I don't know how much this will destroy that, or should we obey everything that it says? I mean, you know, I'm so worried because okay, I say okay, I want to start using it, but I'm not sure how flexible is that. This is my question.
So I would say a lot of the things that Aspire sets up to do is actually what people have already been doing, and just making the things that you have been doing easier. So when you say you want to do like a clean architecture approach, that likely also means like how services are wired and which things can interact with each other. Funnily enough, I just shared a link with the videos. There's actually a video on how to do a clean architecture setup with Aspire. So I recommend looking into that. I did not have a look at the sample as well. But really, Aspire is like agnostic for whatever you're doing in the application as well. So you can write one program CS file that implements in 60,000 lines of code, like complex business logic. You could have 6 projects that call each other to implement Hello World. So it really is more like of the infrastructure and deployment setup to remove all these hurdles or all these complex setups that you might have to do with distributed applications. It does not really impact what you do within the application as much.
As I understood,
Mhm.
we should use it for greenfield projects, right? And the start should be with Aspire templates, right?
Yes, I would suggest doing that.
Mhm.
But again, the Aspire templates, the actual applications in there are classic ASP.NET Core
Yeah.
API services, web services, and you can replace the content of these. It doesn't matter what's in there.
Okay.
I suggest using these service defaults. They're just setting up a lot of the configuration around, again, more the infrastructure level concerns, but not the actual application concerns. So if you put mediator in there, doesn't affect any of that.
Okay. Thank you.
But the service default project uses the extension method on a different application builder, right? Than what we had with .NET Core 3 and 5, 6.
It's the same application builder. I mean, there's different application builders. It has been renamed. So like the web host builder, a web application builder is a wrapper around the builder that is the abstract builder, where you could also build services that have nothing to do with web. But again, these extension methods, I think they're on the actual agnostic one. So
Yeah,
you can build a
because
service as well. You don't have to build a
when
web
I
service builder.
tried to add it to the project that I am working on,
Mm-hmm.
it said that the builder is not compatible
Mm-hmm.
and with the service defaults. And yeah, because the older builder we can upgrade to .NET 8 and it
Mhm.
works without changing the builder,
Mm-hmm.
the project. To use Aspire, I have to now change the builder.
Yeah.
Kind of.
However, if you look into the extension methods, what the expansion methods do is just on the builder access the services. So technically, you could change the methods to just be an extension methods on the services part, on the service collection. So you could just change it to not add to the builder, but add to the service collection in the builder as well.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Because if you look at the extension method, now I closed my laptop. What it does, it usually calls builder.services.add OpenTelemetry, add, and so on. It doesn't really have a hard dependency on the builder, more on the actual service collections, like the service definition.
Good. Nothing from the chat.
Mhm.
So then let's fight with the focus. No. Ah. So thank you, Martin, for giving a talk. I don't know. Did you ever get one of those?
Yes, I think it's still at my old company though.
Okay, then you have so all of our speakers here will get a custom made
Coaster?
coaster with our logo. So as you normally you only get one, but you're lucky.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Also thank you all for joining here and on stream or then on the recording. For the people here, there's some small benefits. We have some stickers in the back, some rather now vintage.NET stickers in the meantime, but also the .NET team sent us some Aspire stickers and .NET MAUI stickers. There are only about 30, 35 stickers there in the middle. And also we have our collection stickers with our logo. The winter, the Christmas edition stickers are also there. It's not here. It has some snowflakes on it. Yeah. Once again, thank you for our sponsors, JetBrains for sponsoring and TechTalk for being here. Let's quickly go to the raffle. So you have now some seconds left to enter hashtag JetBrains in the chat, and on the wrong screen. So let's, where's my mouse? Left, right. And I got it. So let's see who is the lucky one. We need music for that. So this person, I don't try to pronounce that. Please send us an email at team@.netdevs.at, and perhaps you will get the voucher before Christmas or then in January. Let's see how my time is available. And because we have a lot, still some left, let's draw again. And it's Christmas, so who is the lucky second one? It's a 12 months JetBrains product license. So Spitzfaust on Twitch, also for you. Please contact us at team@.netdevs.at to get your voucher. And the last thing before we can go to our pizzas, we want to improve these events, and to improve these events, we would need feedback from you. So please, quick survey, big QR code and a link. Perhaps Stefan, you could put the link into the chat. That would help us to improve our events in the future. And with that, see you all next year's on 14th January or so, 14th, 15th, at Rubicon, and about AI assistant systems for the net, current state and developments by Rainer Stroppek. And with that, have a nice evening or rest of the day, and see you next time. Bye.